It's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Right up there, 2 o'clock. Hey, Pacific time, live. You're on Emil Amok's Takeout. My takes on all things considerable. I talk. This is like old-fashioned talk radio. You don't even have to call up. I mean, how many times did you listen to talk radio? And how many times did you really ever call up? Were you one of those who actually called up? Now, I was in the talk radio biz, and very few actually called up. Most people just listen. Most people are lurkers, right? They prefer their anonymity because they find someone out there who's going to talk for them. So you really don't need calls. But this is an old-timey kind of talk radio thing, except for one thing. I'm not coming from the right. I mean, I may be right, but I'm not right-wing. I'm coming from somewhere not left field, not totally left field, but I'm coming from a little different perspective, and it may surprise you sometimes. And that's why the title for the show is, hey, flip the flip. You don't try to flip me. I mean, I'm open. I mean, this is part of free speech. This is part of America, and this is why I'm concerned about something that I saw in the Washington Post today that you're concerned with too. If there is a second coming of Donald Trump. Now, already that has kind of like a, biblical overtones, but it's serious. If there's a second coming of Donald Trump, Washington reports that Trump and his allies plot revenge, Justice Department control in a second term. Advisors have also discussed deploying the military to quell potential unrest on Inauguration Day. Remember that image of Barack and Michelle Obama saying goodbye to the White House and handing the keys over to Donald Trump? The peaceful transition of power, that's what American democracy, that's what democracy is supposed to model. But Donald Trump now, he's prepared. He's going to go in and he's going to make sure that there's nothing that goes wrong under his watch. He's going to make sure, and these ideas that he's putting forward, as reported by the Washington Post, dangerous, unconstitutional. I mean, the lead of the story is pretty harrowing. If you want to imagine what a second term of Donald Trump could possibly be. But here's the lead. This is a story by Isaac Amsdorf, Josh Dawsey, and Devlin Barrett. Donald Trump and his allies have begun mapping out specific plans for using the federal government to punish critics and opponents should he win a second term. With the former president naming individuals he wants to investigate or prosecute, and his associates drafting plans to potentially invoke the Insurrection Act on his first day in office to allow him to deploy the military against civil demonstrations. That is fascism. That is dangerous. And Donald Trump is preparing for this. And it's important that this is coming out now, because this is one of those things that if we wait before it's reported, it's too late. Then we see it happening in real time. But these Washington Post reporters, this is the second graph. In private, Trump has told advisors and friends in recent months that he wants the Justice Department to investigate one-time officials and allies who have become critical of his time in office, including his former chief of staff, John F. Kelly, and former Attorney General William P. Barr, who, by the way, was an enabler of Trump before he became a critic, as well as his ex-attorney Ty Cobb, who certainly has been a voice of reason, speaking out for some of the defendants who didn't get their own attorneys, like Walt Nauta, the box the box man down there in Mar-a-Lago. So he wants to go after Takeout. Trump wants to go after the former Joint Chief of Staff, Chairman General Mark A. Milley. And you know how Trump felt about Milley. Now, this is the key line in the paragraph. All this is according to people who have talked to him, who, like others, spoke on the condition of anonymity to describe private conversations. This is unfortunately how you got to do reporting these days. You talk to someone, take them not necessarily off the record, but take them not for attribution. So you're not going to say, according to John Smith said this about Pocahontas. Different John Smith. But you know what I mean. You don't attribute to someone. You just say, hey, I got this on good authority from someone who is anonymous. Trump has also talked to prosecuting officials at the FBI and Justice Department. A person familiar with the matter said. This is important. This is not just the Washington Post blowing smoke up you know where. This is real stuff from people in the know who are letting these things out. Because we need to know now that this is happening so that we're not shocked when it happens in real time come January 2025, if, in fact, a second term is won by Donald Trump. Back to the story. In public, Trump has vowed to appoint a special prosecutor to go after President Biden and his family. Well, that Trump has said in public. The former president has frequently made corruption accusations against him that are not supported by available evidence. So Trump is doing all the smoke blowing on his own in public. But now, according to these sources, anonymous sources, Trump is planning a kind of American fascism. To facilitate Trump's ability to direct Justice Department actions, his associates have been drafting plans to dispense with 50 years of policy and practice intended to shield criminal prosecutions from political considerations. Meaning, all the things that all the MAGA folks in Congress now are warning about. The weaponization of politics. Those MAGA folks and people close to Trump who are preparing for a possible second, they are preparing to weaponize everything for politics. And critics, of course, have called such ideas dangerous and unconstitutional. But that's what Trump is thinking about. When he's not thinking about all his criminal cases or his civil cases, he's not testifying today, I believe. It's election day. They're not open. The Washington Post story then also quotes a professor, constitutional law professor at University of Virginia, who studies executive power, Sakrishna Prakash, who says it would resemble a banana republic if people came into office and started going after their opponents willy-nilly. It's hardly something we should aspire to. And yet, this is a second term under Donald Trump. This is the preparations. They're making the plans. They're not just planning for the bunting. They're going deeper. They're planning for how Trump will control and rule with an iron hand in America. This is the fear. This is what you need to know about. It's election day, right, in America? And there's some great issues to follow around the country, whether abortion will be made illegal in Ohio, if it's put in the Constitution. The governor's race in Kentucky, that's interesting. Andy Beshear, a Democrat in a red state, running against the African-American Politico who worked with Mitch McConnell It'll be a test of red and blue in that state, which is really kind of back and forth. A lot of red types like Andy Beshear, the Democrat. It's going to be a tough fight in what is traditionally a red state. And then you have the state house in Virginia. I think all the seats are up for grabs there. And that's going to, if the Republicans win, that's going to bolster the leadership hopes, the national hopes of Glenn Youngkin, the governor, who could be one of those, well, he hasn't put his hat in the ring yet. There's only a year before the 2024 election. So it may be too late. It may be just right, but it may be too late. Now, we're going to have a debate tomorrow with the Republicans, but none of them look like they can give a challenge to Donald Trump. That's why we talked about this first story that was in the Washington Post that should really make people fearful. If you're considering still voting for Trump, you say, well, now imagine this. There must be some people thinking, well, you know, if we like Trump, then we should do all we can to make sure he has the tools to, like, bring people into order, you know, bust these people. Which sounds good if you're a Trump fan, I suppose, if you're a MAGA fan, but that's not the way it works in a democracy. That's the way it works in a banana republic. And those of us who have forebears who came from such republics, that's why we're here in America. Because we don't want that. Not here, not in America. So we're talking about the election today. So there's still some big issues, but when I turned on the television, as I'm wont to do in the morning, what they're talking about is whether Joe Biden should step down. Because that New York Times poll on the weekend has, as they say, legs, and continues to be in the heads of politicos everywhere. Like, how do we turn this around? What's up with Joe Biden? There's nothing up with Joe Biden. I mean, physically, he seems fine, at least from in all the public reports about his health. He's far more, he's disclosed much more than Donald Trump, who we can see is morbidly obese and not much younger than Joe Biden, by the way. But for some reason, Trump is seen as the fighter because he's standing up for his rights, even though in an incoherent, illogical way, like he showed on Monday. And Biden is not seen as really the great post-Trump leader who has righted the ship. That's the way he should be seen as. He's not seen as the right moderate, the right man for the job to get the country back on the right path. Instead, he's seen as this old man who wants to extend his political career, which is ageist, which is inappropriate, and it flies in the face of the results. He's gotten results. You know, I'd rather have someone like Biden surrounded by people, good people, like, I think Kamala Harris is a good person. Of course, no one's talking about her as succeeding Joe Biden. She might be the Democrats' Mike Pence, which is a shame because Kamala Harris deserves a look at the top spot on her own. In fact, the New York Times poll looked at how she did better than Biden, but she still lost to Trump if the election were to be held today. Who is the person who could beat Trump, according to this poll, any unnamed generic Democrat would beat Donald Trump by about 10 points. Which means, who is that generic Democrat? We need the best generic Democrat. We don't need the geriatric Democrat. No, I say we need the geriatric Democrat. And that we should end the ageism. Look, I was for Feinstein. I want to see Nancy Pelosi lead. I'm for all these people who are being rushed out. That they are, this is wisdom. This is institutional memory. This is what we need in America. We need to revere these folks. Now, this is the Asian in me. We need to revere people with the experience of a Joe Biden, not like toss them out and saying, look, we're done. We want more. We want something else. We're tired of this. But this is what the takeaway from the polls, from this New York Times Siena College poll that was released on Sunday. This is what it's been. I disagree. I think if you look at the polls, there is a way out. And the way out is get Kamala Harris out there speaking Joe Biden. Because the people who like Kamala Harris, young people, black people, Latino people, they're deserting her when the call is, do you want to vote for Joe Biden? Massive double-digit reductions in people sticking with Kamala and Joe. And we need to reverse that. The best person to do that is having Kamala Harris, the person that these communities look up to, revere, looking to her leadership, and then going to the polls in 2024. That's not happening yet. I think it's just a matter of the urgency isn't there quite yet. It could be, it should be, but that's the way out. Kamala Harris has the keys to the BIPOC youth kingdom out there, and she's got to make sure that she solidifies that group going forward for the Democrats. But the polls are showing, this New York Times Siena College poll is showing that that's loosened up a lot. People are looking elsewhere. They're looking for other candidates, which is why some people today, even today, are talking about, hey, we love Biden. Everyone loves Biden, right? That's what they say. Well, if they love Biden, they should stop talking about alternatives. But as I said, there's even a plan. It was reported by Axios last week that there's some people just looking at Plan B. I don't think we need Plan B. Plan B is still Plan A, and that's B for Biden. He's earned a second term, and you put him side by side. That's going to be the thing. You put Biden side by side with Donald Trump. Just look at him on Monday and look at what he did. And look at how he pretty much trashed the New York State Supreme Court in that hearing. And mind you, Donald Trump has already been found liable for fraudulent practices. This was just the penalty phase. And he should have been kissing up to the judge instead of antagonizing him. But this is going to potentially come back and bite the Donald and the you-know-where, because everything was said under oath. And it's not going to affect just this case. It'll affect other cases. And he's got 91 criminal indictments against him besides this civil case. And there's another civil case in New York, in New York City. So I don't know what the legal strategy is on the part of the the Trumpers, except that it does rile up his base to say, "Oh, look, there's Donald. He's fighting for us. He's standing up for us." No, he's not standing up for you. Because here's the reality: he gets away with it because he's a former president. If you or I behave that way in court, like Donald Trump did yesterday, they would lock us up and throw away the key. And you don't believe me? Look at guys like Black Panther leader Bobby Seale, trial of the Chicago 7. He interrupted the judge. He was bound and gagged. The other white defendants didn't get, well, they probably didn't act like him, like Bobby Seale. Well, why was it okay to bound and gag Bobby Seale? Well, you know, they weren't going to bound and gag Donald Trump. I mean, there are gag orders in other trials that he's involved in, but in this one, the judge pretty much maybe allowed Trump to misbehave, or maybe the judge was just knowing that Trump couldn't help himself and there would be more information, more negative information. Because if you can't answer a question, then what is a judge who is the sole arbiter in that case? What is he to think? Well, I guess you're admitting to all these things that you're being charged with here in this civil case. So just look at everything that happened yesterday with Donald Trump. This is the man who wants to be president again. And put it next to things like what Joe Biden has done for the infrastructure, what Joe Biden has done for, well, a lot of Asian Americans listen to this show. How, when he first came to office, one of the first things he did was remind people that Asian Americans, victims of hate violence during the pandemic, were part of America, deserved to be protected, and would be protected. He hasn't forgotten our community. Now, I get it. A lot of people say, look, here's the thing about Biden. And while it's true, you know what I'm saying, you know, yeah, you compare Trump and what he's done and what he'll do to the Constitution, and you look at what Joe Biden has done, no comparison who the better person is. But a lot of people vote with their, you know, with their pocketbooks. And the word is, hey, stop talking about this macroeconomic stuff. Start talking about, you know, don't talk about the growth in the economy or the slow growth in the economy. People respond to real things because we're not that smart. If we got more money in the bank, more money in our wallets, we're happy. If we can pay our bills on time, we're happy. If we're fighting to get the cash flow going, if we're living paycheck to paycheck, a lot of pressure. Taxes go high, a lot of pressure. If you see the costs at the store, at the grocery store, the gas pump is really a good barometer. I mean, I was paying $4.59, I think, the other day, which is generally cheaper than a lot of places in California. I mean, I buy the cheapest gas. I don't buy super premium, whatever. But California is usually high. But if you use gas prices as a barometer, oh my God, you know, you're saying, even when you're, you know, comfortable, I mean, not rich, comfortable, you got your eye out for your pocketbook, you're wondering, do something about policy. Who's going to do something? for us. Who's going to help us? I mean, that's what people want. And maybe also it's a time. People just don't want to worry about things now. 2024 seems like so far away. It's right around the corner. Right around the corner. So, but check out the Washington Post story, because if the sources are correct, and I have no reason to doubt the sourcing of the Washington Post, and if they're telling the reporters there that Donald Trump is already planning to get the Justice Department involved, looking at specific people who've been critical of him, as well as the little guy, people who would go to a mass demonstration around inaugural day. It's in the works. They're planning for an American fascist regime. It'll come out, I mean, if Trump wins, he will soft pedal it as, this is just law and order. Not just law and order. He'll be stifling voices, stifling criticism. And this is why we vote. This is why we register and we vote. Why on election day we have to say, I'm exercising my franchise, my right in a democracy to speak out and to let my representatives know how I feel. That's why today's special. And if you're living in the state that is voting, Ohio, let's see, what other states? Kentucky, Virginia, they're voting in Boston for the city council, no matter what. Gubernatorial offices, constitutional state office or state issues, local issues. Like I said, the Boston City Council. I was just in Boston listening to Mayor Wu. I mean, here's the thing about local politics, regional politics. Just think of all the things you want to do, the things that are important to you. Everything is decided, at the county level, the city level, at the state level, at the federal level, by policy, by the decisions that policymakers make on the policies that they come up with. You're concerned about your groundwater? You're concerned about your clean air, your clean water? Are you concerned about your roadways? Getting potholes fixed? Everything in your life. I mean, you can say, I can do it alone. I don't need that. I can just pay someone to fix this. That's what some rich people think. They think they can insulate themselves. Pay with their private funds to get things done. Well, maybe to a degree, but at some point we're all in the same boat. Public policy. And the first step toward deciding what the policy is, who are you voting for on election day? I mean, interesting subject on the PETA podcast that I do. They'll be released sometime tonight, tomorrow. There's a group or a company that already has a pretty despicable record when it comes to starting a monkey farm. And what happens to those monkeys? Well, not only do they breed and then they experiment on these monkeys, but the monkeys get disease and the monkeys escape and it's not safe to the public. And then there's feces and wastewater and still water around these facilities. And then the mosquitoes come and they carry all these diseases to the public. This is a public concern. at the local county level, because the company will say, I'd like to improve on this land. I want to build a monkey farm. Oh yeah, well, okay. They'll get the votes. The plans will be passed. Oh, but not if there's public hearings, not if the people know about it. But people won't know about it if there's no transparency and there's no reporting at this small local arena in South Texas, Brazoria County specifically, and only because some residents got wind of what the plans were by this company, and we'll just name them, Charles River Labs. Only because of people wanting to blow the whistle on Charles River, he'd have found out about it. And now it's up to environmentalists, the residents, the neighbors, forging an effort to try to stop this monkey preserve farm holding cell from developing in this large plot of land in South Texas. Like I said, it's all, it's politics. Someone's going to say yes or no to this at the county commission level, and then maybe at the state level, and maybe there'll be an appeal. But this, when they say that elections have consequences, consequences can be very big, or they can be very small. Abortions on the ballot in Ohio, if they're successful there, you should look for instances where more anti-abortion language will be placed into constitutions around the country. And then just look best to take a step back. I mean, I just went to a 50th reunion, and I couldn't believe, I was looking back at the headlines at the time I was a senior. Roe v. Wade was passed. The right to an abortion was affirmed. 50 years later, we're going backwards. This is the way policy goes. Everyone has to vote in the right way, or the issue swings to and fro, and that only took 50 years. Look at every issue that's come down the pike in the last 50 years. Civil rights in 64, voting rights in 65, immigration. The Immigration Act in 65 gave us an Asian American community. They lifted the illegal quotas, or these zero quotas on Asian communities, Asian nations, which allowed for Asian communities here in the United States. Policy shifts, policy changes, votes, elections, they matter. They have consequences. They're important to your life here in America. And as I opened up talking about you can tell Donald Trump is just can't wait to start American fascism. He can't wait to sick the FBI and people he hates who have done him wrong. People who would speak out. People who would take the First Amendment literally in democracy, in America. He can't wait to shut it all down. And that would be a damn shame. A damn shame. So, if you were on the fence about voting, and maybe you're registered in Ohio or Kentucky or Virginia or Massachusetts or wherever. It's election day somewhere. Check your registrar of voters and see if your area. Say you say, I haven't been paying attention. I'm registered, but I was going to sit this one out. Don't sit it out. Show up. Be there. Practice exercising your franchise. Just go there. Vote. Cheer people on as they, fill in the box with black ink, or I don't know, maybe you have a Votomatic, whatever machine you use. This is an important day for democracy, election day. Let's honor it because it's our way. Really, I don't want to say beyond the First Amendment. The First Amendment is very important. But you can talk, and if it's not reaching the ears of the politicians and policymakers, it's not as effective as one vote on the tally sheet. That makes a difference. That makes a difference. So vote. Get out there and vote. All right, we're going to call it a day. I'm trying to keep, Emil Amok's Takeout, fairly manageable. The ideal way to listen to this show is just to, listen to this show, $5.99, and then go back to the archive and on the YouTube channel at Emil Amok 1. Go to listen to $5.98. That was good. $5.90, $5.97, and so forth and so on. And just play them one by one. And it's like listening to an all-night talk show. And you don't have to do much more than listen. It's my secret podcast. We're here. We do it live, 2 p.m. Pacific, although I'm going to have some guests. I usually have Professor Dan, on Friday. Going to have a special guest on Thursday. And talking about Asian American culture 101 from the Smithsonian. Good friend of mine will be on talking about his new book. And so we'll call it a day here for now. If you missed any or all of this or just joined us late, use your finger, go back and rewind. YouTube at Emil Amok 1, FB, facebook.com/EmilGuillermo.media, AMOK.com for some replays, Twitter or X, formerly known as Twitter, at Emil Amok. That's EMIL AMOK. Thank you for being with me today. I like to meditate. It has really helped me. I mean, I was far more amok than I usually am these last few years because I've meditated. And not only have I meditated, I've also put saffron in my coffee. If you haven't done that, I'm telling you, saffron in your coffee, I know it's better than taking an antidepressant. It is. Saffron, you got to grind it up though. Do a mortar and pestle thing, just like 10 fronds. I think they're fronds, Fronds, fronds. Smash it up, make it granular, stick it in your coffee, let it sit. It's helpful. And then meditation's helpful too. So, a little metta, METTA. We like to close all our shows. Also, let me just put out a reminder that if you say, I don't want a generic Democrat, Emil, I want someone to vote. If you're looking for someone to vote for, and you don't like our older President Biden, though I like him, you might want to look at Marianne Williamson. I think about her when I think about meditation. Because I think it would help in negotiation. Don't you think, if we meditated? So, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time. Hey, thank you for being here. Join me next time. Till then, Mahal Kita.